Very good. Thanks, Heather. Cool. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last town of Henrietta Planning Board meeting for 2023. Hard to believe this year is almost over already. Members present this evening: Staff Workowski, Craig Eckert, Walter List, Robert Barley, Marcy Reynolds, and Dan Mascarella, Planning Board Attorney. Town staff present: Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning, and Luke Bushin, Deputy Director of Engineering and Planning. So welcome, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to those in the room and those that might be watching online here. At this point, I'll invite the board to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, Okay, first order of business this evening will be the approval of the minutes from our November 14th, 2023 meeting. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions regarding those minutes? No, there. Barley, have motion? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Second, please.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Mr. List, thank you. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We have minutes are approved. Okay. First on the agenda this evening, application number PB 334.1, Rivers Edge Townhomes, Section 1. This is for final subdivision approval of a 71 lot subdivision of single family townhomes located at 85 and 135 Lehigh Station Road in an industrial zone district with a mixed use employment center overlay district. Good evening and welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Burns with Pastor Associates. Also with me tonight is Brian McKinnon, representing the applicant East River Henrietta LLC. And we are here tonight seeking phase 1 final subdivision approval for the River's Edge. As you guys are aware, the project was in front of this board several times for overall preliminary approval, which we received back in October. And we are now here returning for the phase 1 final, which is going to be the first of 3 phases. The overall project is a part of the Lehigh Mixed Use District. It will consist of 224 townhome units, which are broken up into 2, 3, and 4 unit buildings. In total, there are 58 buildings proposed for the overall project. Since our preliminary approval, there has been no significant changes to the plans. Phase 1 specifically, which we're here for final approval of this evening, consists of 18 townhome buildings totaling 71 units of for-sale townhomes. As requested during preliminary design, we are providing dedicated roadways complete with concrete gutters, sidewalks, as well as select street lighting in some of those parking areas that were previously requested and discussed. With regards to parking, we're providing 24 off-street parking stalls, which is providing a total of 166 total parking stall units in this phase, which gives us a ratio right around 2.4 stalls per unit. Stormwater is going to be installed in phases. With this initial phase, we are providing pond 1, 2, and 3. And those 3 ponds are sufficient for handling the stormwater runoff from not only just phase 1, but phase 2 as well. Since our preliminary approval, we have been in front of the Conservation Board earlier this month, in which we received minor feedback and are currently addressing those comments. Also, since our preliminary approval, we've been coordinating with multiple utility agencies RG&E as early as this morning, we had a meeting with them, which is productive, and we're finalizing that, their easement location right now. Monroe County Water Authority, Department of Health and Pure Waters, we've addressed all of their comments to date, and they are ready for approval of Mylars. And we've also been coordinating with Monroe County DOT. In addition, we did receive town comments this morning, which we have addressed, and we brought responses to tonight. While we're still updating the plans, we'd be happy to review any of those responses with you. And with that, we thank you for your time, and we're here to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you very much. By the way, did you sign in the back there?
Yes.
Okay, good, excellent. Yeah, thank you for responding to the comments. This is always very helpful to us. As I glanced through them, it doesn't look like there's anything that's a deal breaker, although on the last page there, it looks like you had a couple of things you wanted to discuss with the town.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Where did I see it? Chris, that'll be something you guys can work with them on. Yep. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. At this point, I'll open up to the board, and I'll recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
We've seen this a couple times, so I don't have too many questions, just a couple of quick thoughts. Does the site balance, when you've got a fill site there now from another project? What's the plan?
Yeah, no, so all three phases do balance. This first phase, if you've noticed, there's some topsoil out there right now. We can lose that on site, but obviously won't be using that as structural fill. So we are going to need to take some material from phase 2 into phase 1 out to elevate that. Again, that's kind of being driven mostly by our stormwater discharge, having to go through to the creek and then through those bioretention areas.
Okay.
So the
site
whole
balance is even with the pile that's there now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to lose that, in the other phases though, in non-structural fill areas.
Okay. So you have to move it.
Yep, there's gonna be some earth moving beyond the limits of just this phase 1, but we can provide a phase 1 earth moving plan.
Okay. I don't know if I brought this up before too. When does the second entrance kick in? What's the fire marshal's requirement? Yeah,
so that was one of the comments made in the letter there, and there were actually conflicting comments. One was from the Building and Fire Prevention Department. And, they requested that we provide access to Lehigh Station Road, East River Road with phase 1. And there was another comment saying that, we can use the RG&E easement, if acceptable for that emergency access, if that's what you're referring to.
So the amount of units that you have in phase 1 requires the secondary access from the fire department.
Correct. Yeah, it's 71, and I believe 30 triggers that. So we agree that a secondary access will need to be provided in some form.
You haven't figured that out yet.
No, and that was one of the comments we were hoping to discuss with town staff afterwards. And again, just to clarify on exactly what's going to be required, because it's a large piece of infrastructure for just the first phase.
Sure. Right. That's why I was asking the question.
Yep. No, we agree. It's something to be discussed. Again, the original proposed plan was to kind of loop back on that RG&E emergency access road and back to Lehigh, but
It's gated, isn't it?
it is. So we'd have to coordinate with RG&E on that as well.
Okay. All right. So sticking on my RG&E electric comment, have you requested service yet?
Yep. We've had multiple
Received any notification from them?
We have, they are willing, they can provide utility to the site. We were working with them this morning, actually in our office, about finalizing easement locations.
So they've said they can provide service.
Correct, both gas and electric.
Okay. Then the only other comment I have is, and I didn't see it on the conservation board, it's something that we're just trying to do. I didn't get a good grasp of what's going to be mowed and what's not mowed. And
Okay.
that really isn't a planning board, too much of an oversight as much as a conservation board. We're allowing limitations to what's being cut.
Okay,
If you want to plant native grasses, different things that don't need as much maintenance to them to reduce your maintenance costs.
okay,
But, the town has been working towards that. I didn't see that comment in the conservation board when you went through. I wanted to make sure I added that.
okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll certainly
Around
look
the
into that.
ponds and such, some of that stuff, if it's not, doesn't need to be mowed.
Yep.
Doesn't need to be maintained. You well to do so if you want to, but if you want to reduce it, you can.
Okay,
And just keep the
Thank you.
grass areas around the buildings or right of ways and et cetera. And that is the end of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a question for you. You mentioned is the site balanced. What does that mean? Can you explain that?
Earth, so when you have cut and fills, they're going to take the existing topography, change it to get the road to work and the buildings to sit. So when you're, cut and fill on an engineering term is if you're taking a pile from one place and moving it to another, but it's staying on site, meaning that the site's balanced. So everything that you're just moving around is on the site. There's a large pile of material from the project, I think it actually started when this project first came in as a DePaul project originally, but then I think, and I'm not sure if it all came from across the street, the Lehigh East River project, or a mix of the two, but there's a large pile. Wasn't sure if there's going to be 100, plus trucks taking material off or bringing more material on. Just trying to understand.
Yeah, sure what the balance piece meant. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am fine on this one. Thank you, Pastor, for doing those comprehensive answers. Love to see it. And if there's not something that has a bunch of red lights, we're good usually. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Andrew, one of the questions I asked, I'll ask it again. Is there gonna be any water safety measures inside these buildings? For fire, any sprinkler systems, anything like that?
No, they won't have sprinkler systems. We are meeting the required, state code for
Okay,
fire hydrants on the site, but nothing in the building.
so the first phase is 71 units. right?
Correct.
Is there a problem having the access road there with those 71 units for the fire department?
The one over to East River.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, again, it's a very large cost to carry, especially since, it won't be used regularly by those, by those initial home buyers. So the original intent was to do that in a later phase of two or three, when we'd be doing more work over there and just for sequencing wise.
So for safety of those residents that are there.
Yep.
When would you be doing that if it's not in phase one?
Well, we'd have to provide secondary access after
Okay.
30 units are occupied. So the original plan. From this road A extension,
Mhm.
have we been to the fleet, and we would kind of plumb it around itself, so if we have an issue. This access is coming from that emergency kind of secondary access. I do believe the fire marshal's comment was instead of providing next year, to provide off of that as phase one.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, and that would also make sense to us.
Okay, I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a couple of things. On the drainage and grading, stormwater is number 5, stormwater management facilities will be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. What kind of a burden does that place on the average homeowner? In your homeowners association, what kind of I guess I don't understand how that would work. You're gonna maintain so the homeowners are gonna maintain this, all the equipment, or
Yeah, so
things go wrong.
it's mostly just the standard mowing of grass.
Okay.
When we typically, and again, if something does fail in the structure, they would be, asked to, or the HOA would be responsible for repairing that. And again, that's just for that, so that can continue to meet town standards. It's got to, the same thing if I was on a private, homeowner, if their site was flooding the residents that, their neighbors, that they'd be asked to repair that themselves. But for that kind of comment, it's typically just mowing of those stormwater.
Can I just add to that? I'm Brian McKinnon. So the New York State Attorney General has to approve what's called an offering plan. And each of those purchase contracts for each of the lots will have an offering plan attached to it. Inside the offering plan is a budget that Ryan Holmes will provide,
Okay.
which will outline the anticipated costs that each homeowner would pay each month into a homeowners association. And inside that HOA, there would be contracted services and employees, if you will, that would mow the common areas, maintain the entrance signage, which is the monument sign identifying the name of the community, and maintain, to the extent, as Craig mentioned, the stormwater management facilities. That would be independent of the homeowner. They would pay for that monthly. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it
Okay.
does, yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank
Walter, if I could interject too, the town will have easements over the storm sewer system, so we're responsible for cleaning the pipes and maintenance of those, as well as the outlet structure from the pond to the creek. So we will do the heavy lifting as far as making sure the pipes and storm sewer itself is clean and maintained. But as far as like mowing the grass and things like that around the ponds, we want that to be on the applicant.
On the applicant.
Mhm.
All right.
What's that?
That's because the ponds will be part of the dedication to the town.
The town isn't
Stormwater.
taking we're not taking dedication of the ponds, but we are taking dedication of the storm sewers going into the
Okay.
pond.
Thank you.
Yep.
You said it better than me.
Well, I've had a lot of practice.
And, you know, this is a mixed use overlay. Employment Center Overlay District. So you have these it's 2 phases for the townhouses, correct?
3.
3 phases.
Yep.
So when we're done with the 3 phases, what are the plans for that acreage to the
To the west.
west? Yeah.
Yeah, so in our town board, special use permit approval for this district, this was proposed to be industrial.
Is there any,
Right,
that's not in your.
no, we're still looking to find interested
looking to
parties in
find
that.
Okay,
There's no current plan for anything but industrial at some point over there.
okay. This says Employment Center Overlay District, so I want to hope that hopefully maybe some of the people that live there will be able to be employed.
Correct, that's
down the
absolute,
road.
that's the goal.
No, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question. What was the expected timeline for phase 2 and 3 again, or is that going to depend on how phase 1 goes?
It's certainly going to be dependent, but I believe the current plan is to tackle these 1 year at a time. If all goes well, phase 1 will roll out. We're ready to start, breaking ground immediately with that and have all those occupied and sold, and then right into phase 2, hopefully we're doing this again in a year for phase 2.
Okay. That's the only question I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you.
Mr. Mistrella, anything from you, sir?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martin?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Seeker was already done at the preliminary subdivision approval, so I think we're all set.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion. Chair will make a motion to approve application number PB 334.1, Rivers Edge Townhome Section 1. Can I get a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Go ahead, Mercy.
Mrs. Reynolds? Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Who was nay? Mr. Listen,
Rob
Mr.
Barrow.
Barley? Okay, thank you. Okay, and the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Congratulations and welcome.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next application number 23-016. This is Green Spark Solar, also known as Tobin Henrietta Solar LLC, for final site plan approval of a 4 megawatt direct current and 3 megawatt alternating current ground mounted photovoltaic solar array on approximately 14.1 acres located at 55 Tobin Road in a rural residential district. Welcome again.
Hi, it's nice to see everyone. My name is Mia Morgillo, from Green Spark Solar, and this is Matt Vanderbilt, also from Green Spark Solar. Tobin Road, you will see that we have revised the layout. A few things I did want to note. This has,
Excuse me, can you pull the mic a little bit closer to your,
of course,
oh, thank you.
this size has reduced to a 3.47 megawatt DC size. This way we could stay out of that drainage ditch that runs east and west through the property. It has reduced down to 5,976 modules, and we have decreased the size of the array from the original 14.1 acres down to 13.69. That specific decrease was due to the conservation easement that we will be placing Bruce Howlett's land under at 1112 East River Road. This will be to comply with the updated solar code. At the December 6th town board meeting, there was a resolution to accept the seeker determination and issue a negative declaration. We have also submitted the agricultural NOI to NYSERDA. We have not yet received a determination from the commissioner. So tonight we will be asking for conditional approval of our site plans based on the special use permit decision tomorrow and the submission of our approved NOI.
Okay, thank you.
Did you guys sign in on the back there?
Yes.
Okay, and if you have a card or something, if you could leave it there, that's great. But could you give me
Absolutely.
your name one more time?
Mia Morgillo,
Spell that last name.
Morgillo.
Mia.
Yes,
Thank you.
MIA.
And what was your name?
Matt, Vanderbrook, VANDERBROK, and I live in my yard.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reynolds, we'll start with you on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just had a couple questions, please.
Mhm.
It's noted that you are no longer applying for incentive zoning for this project. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, so there's going to be an update, hopefully, based on tomorrow's decision to the solar code, which will allow for 4 times the size of the array to be conserved at 1112 East River Road. This is land owned by Bruce Howlett. It is a total of 55.78 acres, which is why we reduced the array size from that 14.1 to the 13.69.
And I think I'll just chime in just from the discussions with the town of just the incentive zoning was, I think the idea, because this is farmland, wanting to make sure that we're not taking away farmland and preserving farmland and sort of the motivation behind, not going the route, the incentive zoning for this specific property.
Or
We did for the other
just the
two.
Tobin
Just-
Road
Yes.
one?
Right, yeah.
A couple more questions.
Of course,
Racking through the drainage ditch has been removed.
correct.
Can you elaborate on that? What that is, I'm not sure.
Yes, no problem. Okay, so this is our updated layout also projected onto there, and you'll see it in here as well. On page 2, it'll be blown up but you'll be able to see that there's a strip in the middle that has been taken out. That way, we wouldn't mess with any stormwater management on the property.
But this, in this image, this is shifted in our sort of revised layout,
Mhm.
because that's
That's the old one.
Pulled it out of that area.
Okay. Thank
Just
you.
because, I think there were some question marks about it. There is a wetland over there, but that stream is not a wetland, correct?
Correct.
But there is a little bit of a slope. It's a ditch, wanting to avoid that area, so we decided to just pull it out of there.
Thank you. The original plan was to remove 2.5 acres of trees. That's been revised. You're reducing that removal, or?
We have not reduced that removal, but we have had a condition placed on our approval of the 2 East Henrietta projects that we expect to be placed on our approval tomorrow as well for Tobin, where we will replace every one mature stand tree that's not an invasive species. It's a lot of invasive scrub species there. We will replace at a 2-to-1 rate.
Got it, thank you. And I think that's all I had. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're
I'm
welcome.
all set. Thank you.
Okay. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thanks. Has this land been worked agriculturally recently?
Yes,
And what was on this land?
beans
Beans. Okay,
and winter wheat, I believe.
gotcha. So do we know what grade of soil this is?
We did submit soil maps. There are some groups 1 through 4 soils, which are the prime agricultural soils. That's the primary reason that we did submit that agricultural NOI. Yes, it is an agricultural district. And there are those prime soils on there.
Okay,
So Aggie Markets is part of our, we would have done it anyways, but part of working with NYSERDA, which is required to file a NOI, so we submitted that a couple months ago at this point, and still not.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Oh, one other question. If you're obliged to say, what company is benefiting from? You're not, you can't say right now?
Allowed to say it,
Okay.
But when we will hopefully be announcing that in the next few months. It's not officially official, so I
All right.
can't say it out
Thanks,
loud,
Matt.
but
Appreciate it. No problem.
it's we've been, we're working with a company that's local, that's
Mhm.
within the town. So
Okay,
we're angling towards getting that wrapped up here in the next. couple
Okay.
months, so.
thanks, Matt. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski. Yes, you may. Yeah, Mr. Eckert.
I'm sorry. Oh, he's not.
Gonna pass for the moment.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I guess I didn't see a markup. Am I missing something? Was there a change?
Sorry,
Was there a change to the
the layout.
application that was sent in?
Yes, this, there should have been something that looks like this, and on page 2, you'll
Where did that-
see,
When did that come in?
last week, Monday, I believe.
So this is referring back to the conservation easement though. The subdivision. No, that's I'm sorry, referring to the subdivision.
Mhm.
And that was allowed. Okay. Okay, there wasn't a restriction on the deed. Oh, okay, all right, so, but then this, what I'm looking at in this application set isn't what this is. What do you have? I'm sorry? This was. Thank you. Okay, so not much. Yeah, okay,
Not much different.
Pretty minimal.
yeah, okay. I just was making sure, I guess I was looking, reviewing it the same thing. I didn't see this.
It was mostly just tucking in a couple of fence corners, and then that,
Yeah.
avoiding that drainage ditch.
Okay, so I'm sorry, yeah.
No problem.
The other notes I have, and just try to separate it, put them all together for both projects, so. Same question, I guess, for both projects, and I didn't get a chance to find it on this review. What's the plan for the grass underneath or plantings underneath? Are
Mm.
we,
Yeah, where do we land on that? We
So-
have a mix, but
We have a landscape architect, researching which one we should use for the area, but it is going to be a native grass mix.
a native, not a pollinator?
Yes.
A
yeah.
pollinator,
Yes.
pollinating native grass
Yes,
mix,
correct.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to do lessons learned here from the one we've been through, so I'm trying to ask some questions.
Of
I'm
course.
not sure we got that affects this project at all, but I'm not sure if we did. It's hard to tell. I think we got more clover, and I don't know if that's really what the mix is supposed to be, or what I had in my mind, what we were expecting could be what's out there, or different than what's out there, but what's out there could be what was spec. I don't.
And a lot of times clover is, we use clover as a pollen project, but we're working with Fisher too. Fisher's working on like an actual, here's the mix that you can have.
Okay, so we don't have that information yet.
No.
Okay, so but that's what we're going.
Yes.
Is there
Yes.
plans to farm underneath the solar panels?
No.
Okay, not, okay, which is fine. I just wanted to
Yeah.
communicate if that was a plan going forward with.
Raising is a possibility, I suppose, but we haven't formalized.
Okay, well, I know there's been grants out, there's been some other, benefits to farming underneath. Once this thing gets covered, gets fenced in, farming underneath becomes a benefit.
Yeah.
So the deer are less likely to get in there and eat a lot of the things that they're trying to farm. You know,
Currently no plans, but those options sort of always.
Yeah, okay. And then we talked about the trees a little bit, and you're expecting that to come down. I mean, I don't know if this is, I'd like to see a tree inventory more. Again, I, like you, just would like to see, making sure we're not cutting down any,
Mhm.
would be a threatened species possibly.
Right. Yep.
Again, with the other project we had, we did run into what might have been some endangered or threatened species, but I don't know trees, so. I get the, trying to share some heirlooms or, off the one just strong. I don't know if there's an ability to do a tree inventory if we're already planning on that.
Yep, that is a condition, is that we're gonna have to map that out, so that will be submitted to the town.
So that tree inventory will be submitted.
Mhm.
That'll go with the same question we did the project too. I'll just get that out there. Okay. Yeah, like you, we don't wanna, cut down something that's been an heirloom tree or something along those lines. I don't imagine there is in the middle. Usually those around the rows,
Mhm.
between properties is where we usually see them, but
Right.
as long as those are pretty much mostly staying. that's
Yeah,
the way
we
they-
and that with the neighbors and discussed the oak trees that
Yep.
were up there.
Oh, so there are
Yep.
some. old
Mhm.
oaks that
We
are-
demarcated those as well, just
and
to
so
make
they're-
double sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. That is the extent of my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Record.
Okay.
The chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry if this was already covered.
No
uh,
problem.
But, we talked about a certain fence that was gonna go around it,
Yes.
and you guys are still leaving a space at the,
Yes.
so smaller things can kind of get in there and manage it.
Yep.
Um. Okay, this is still a pretty big thing for that area. But I understand your changes and I'm actually curious to see what, Mr. Mistrell is gonna say. Other than that, I don't have any more comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. I've just got one thing. You saw the fire marshal's comment
Mhm.
about you're guaranteeing that the road is maintained 365. and then you-
Yes,
Okay,
and it was responded to in the response packet
okay,
for
thank you.
comments.
Yep.
And what, this came up on another project, and we were just thinking about like, and we can maybe work on this later, but just like, is there a threshold of like, what amount of snow do you need to plow, right? Is it like a day like today, like 2 or 3 inches, I think we can figure that out.
Okay, yeah, that's
a
fine.
question. Think about.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you. Mr. Mistrella, I will turn the floor over to you, sir.
Mr. Martin, noticed last week a note on a map from 1996 when the LaBelle Estate subdivision was before the planning board, where it indicated that lot number 2 would not be further subdivided. We looked into what the genesis of that was, and it appears that it was based upon a conversation between the town engineer, Mark Byrne, and Cornelis engineer, Christopher Martin, and a couple other people, actually after the planning board meeting, wherein it was determined that rather than this thing being a 6-lot deal, it would only be 3 lots, and one of the concessions was that lot 2 wouldn't be further subdivided. And there's a note to that effect on the map itself, but there's no LIBOR or page reference for any type of deed restriction. A deed restriction would not be binding upon the planning board in any event. And our zoning code allows it. And note that back in 1996 was before we had any rural residential district zoning. And I think this was R120 at the time.
That's correct.
So that being the case, at most, that note reflects a condition of approval by the planning board. And actually, based on what we can find, it doesn't even reach to that extent. But to be safe rather than sorry, in your approval, should you vote to approve this, we should note that pursuant to the approval, the planning board recognizes that this is going to be administratively subdivided and consents to that being done.
Say that again, I'm sorry. It's going to be administratively subdivided and then what?
And that the planning board consents to that, or I'd
consent.
say removes the condition that it not be subdivided, but I don't really think there is a condition that it not be subdivided. So, but your blessing on an administrative subdivision would, I think, just solve the problem.
Okay.
And as you know, it's being subdivided for financial purposes, not not for, any other development, so to speak. It's merely to allow for the applicant to comply with certain regulatory requirements. So the subdivision is in essence a line on a map. It's nothing more than that.
Okay,
In this case.
very good. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just ask a question, wouldn't the zoning, the town zone code overwrite that? I mean, we're probably in the town code based off the subdivisions in the, anyway, being that it doesn't, right, it's not documented, in the sense it doesn't exist, and even if it did, it would be a deed restriction, which we wouldn't oversee anyway.
That's correct. And the only reason it's being brought up is because there's a note on a map.
Right, you're just
And
making
that's
us
it.
aware.
Yeah. There really isn't. Plus, there was 2 years later, there was a subdivision.
Right.
Of that lot for purposes of, I think, a pipeline. Is that right? Yeah. So, I just, to the degree that anybody was concerned about that note, I am thoroughly satisfied that that note does not prevent this from going forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mistrella. Mr. Martin, anything,
The only thing I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, is that obviously this be a condition site plan approval with the understanding that they have to get the special use permit approved by the town board. And also the NOI has to be approved by New York State Ag and Market. Yeah, it's not a, no, it's not a DEC, it's a New York State Ag and Market.
I'm sorry, just.
Oh, there's the-
The DEC NOI, which I didn't.
No, I
So,
got confused on the same thing when I first saw it, but it's a notice of intent, but it's to one of the
special use
get
permit?
special use
approved by
permit
town board.
approved by the town board. And then the second would be is to get the approval from New York State Ag and Market.
You said the NOI approved, right? Or just-
Well, you could probably, is that the correct terminology?
So we did submit it quite a time ago. Based on our calculations, the 45-day period, they have to approve it. It should have been approved on Sunday. I expected to receive it Monday. We did not. So I have contacted NYSERDA to see what's going on, but I haven't heard back yet. But as soon as we have it, you'll have it.
Okay,
Basically, a determination that we get from that. Project is guidelines around building in those areas that we have to follow. We'll have to figure that out.
So I have one question,
Mhm.
if I may. We called this notation on the map a deed restriction.
It is. Somebody may have referred to it as a deed restriction. There isn't a deed restriction, though. There's no recorded
Yeah,
restriction.
we just met with the federal court company and they had they did not find any of the documentation that they had to, so.
So,
A deed restriction is generally recorded in the Monroe County Clerk.
so it'd be similar to the deed restriction that we found out we had on the River Meadows house that couldn't be built because it was too big for the area. There was a deed restriction. It was recorded. That the difference between what we're talking about?
That is a difference between.
Okay.
what we're talking
Okay.
about, yeah. And the other thing to note is that for zoning and planning purposes, deed restrictions are personal to the beneficiary. They're not subject to enforcement by the municipality.
Gotcha. So now I'm just wondering, like, why was that put on the map in the first place? And you said 2 years after it was subdivided for a pipe anyway, huh?
It was subdivided. 2 years later, it was subdivided, just for purposes of a pipeline being installed. I'll read you a letter, a portion of a letter to engineer Joseph Ardietta, who's acting on behalf of the town of Henrietta, from an attorney at Harder, Seacrest and Emery. It says, as we discussed, the Tobin Road subdivision map prepared by Gary L. Dutton, filed January 31, 1997, provides there will be no further subdivision of lot 2. You advised me, that would be Joseph Ardietta, the engineer on behalf of the town, advised that the intent of the provision was to restrict further development of lot 2, and the pipeline's proposed acquisition would not violate any town of Henrietta subdivision laws or restrictions. And so that's back when this was residentially zoned.
Gotcha.
And the idea was that the LaBelle Estates applicant was not going to further subdivide for residential development.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The owner of this land. I was the one who bought this land and I was there when we put that on my. So I can address some of.
Could you step up and say your name and go ahead and address it?
And
Basically,
We'll have you sign in the back also when you get a moment.
Okay.
Yep.
When we were in the process of buying the land. And I don't mean to offend anyone. My husband worked for the town of Henrietta. He had recently been let go under weird circumstances. And when we were trying to get this approved so we could build on it. The planning board basically wrote that on there because they kept saying, well, are you gonna put a track in there? Are you gonna put a track in there? And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing.
Gotcha.
But because there was bad blood between my husband, he wouldn't play the politics, and that's why it was put on there. And basically, we closed in May of 97. In August of 97, the people that put the pipeline in along the thruway approached me because everything was in my name at that point. And wanted to buy our wetlands, our delineated wetlands, because they had to replace, like what you guys had, they had to replace the land they used when they put in the pipeline.
Gotcha.
So our neighbor who had bought a huge chunk of the LaBelle estate had like a rectangle offshoot from his main land, ours backed up to that. And I basically convinced them, instead of taking all of our land, to buy that rectangle. And that's how 12.5 acres got bought by the pipeline company. And that's why we had said at the time that there was something on our Mylar that said we can't subdivide, and they said, we're not really subdividing.
Gotcha.
It's now considered a New York State nature preserve. And we have the right to use it. You know, we can walk on it, we can, have our friends hunt on it. And it's written in there that we have the right of first refusal if they decide to develop that land again or do something with it. So that's how that came about, was because the pipeline company needed to replace what they had used and they wanted ours. So,
Interesting.
but that written on the Mylar, we for years have tried to find out who put it on there, why it was on there, how can we get it off of there? Because I never planned on putting a subdivision here. I bought it because I wanted the open land to go hiking, take my dogs, ride my horse, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And that was really a dig at my husband.
Okay. And your first
So-
and last name?
Heinz. I'm Linda Heinz. Mark Heinz Senior was the deputy highway superintendent.
Nice to meet you,
Here.
Ms. Hines.
It's nice
Thanks
to
for
meet you.
explaining that.
So, but at the time, we were living in a tent trailer behind my father-in-law's house because we had to be out of our house in August. And this was December. And basically I lost it at that meeting because they weren't going to approve it. And we're living in a tent trailer in the middle of winter with 2 teenage boys. So I was not happy and that's probably why we didn't really fight it. At that point, I said, just give us the approval so we can start building our house,
Right.
kind of thing. So
Right.
that's how that came about. And I don't mean to offend anyone,
No,
but that's the history behind
that's perfect.
Oh, thank
Thanks
you.
for telling us that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
it.
Thank you very much.
So let me just ask you, would it be fair to say that the explanation that I provided was relatively accurate?
That's not more information from what you explained.
That's why it makes the big bucks.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mistrella. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board?
From that.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve. Application 23-016
Okay. With the conditions, correct?
with all conditions mentioned.
So that would be Mr. Borkowski. Would you like to review those for us?
Yep. We need to stipulate that we recognize that this can be subdivided administratively. And also that it's conditional on the approval of the special use permit and approval of the New York Ag Market. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Special use minutes from the town board, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Very
I
good.
agree.
Okay. Do we have a sufficient second, please?
I'll second that.
Mr. List,
Yeah.
discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Just Reynolds. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. We're back.
Oh, no.
Groundhog Day.
You're right, yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda, application number 23-017, Green Spark Solar, East Henrietta Solar One LLC for final site plan approval of a 6.739 megawatt DC, 5 megawatt AC photovoltaic solar array on approximately 24.63 acres located on East Henrietta Road, to be known as Middle Road, in a rural residential district. Now this also has got to note that this is going to be parcels going to be re-subdivided administratively as part of this project, and we're not taking any action on this tonight, it says.
No, that's not true.
That's not,
We
okay,
are taking action.
we are, okay.
Yes.
That must be an old template or something, so I'm gonna cross that off there. Very good. Sorry to scare you.
No, no problem.
Okay,
Great. So I'm not sure if it's what's being put up there right now, but we did submit a plan to reroute our road further up north. This was just based on requests from the landowners, some comments made from Chris, so just a happy move for us all. Our incentive zoning was approved on 12/6. It's for $150,000 towards the construction of a band shell with solar panels for right out there. Also at that meeting, we got a special use approval and obtained a negative declaration for our seeker. Tonight, we just seek that site plan approval.
oh, that's a very nice incentive that you're working with us on it.
It's gonna be a lot of fun for us.
A great addition to our town park and to the community, and very good. All right, well, the chair will start and recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
I don't have any questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Chair will recognize Mr. List.
Just a kind of a general question for you guys. You know, the average citizen here in Henrietta, they'll all understand, I hope that they all know that they're not gonna benefit from any of these solar arrays.
Right.
Correct?
That's
This is
correct.
all a benefit for an
Yeah,
unknown.
yeah, so it's
business right
structured
now.
for. There are community solar projects, I believe the Vermont is one of those where. Anyone in a community territory can sign up and join a solar project, they could drop out. This one, the current intention for this project is for a single entity to use all the electricity. That stuff could change, it's not sort of set in stone as of yet, but. Currently, you're saying, what you're saying is correct, that it's not intended for use by.
So once it starts going up, people will wonder, how is this
Yeah.
gonna benefit me?
Yeah.
And they're not gonna see that.
Right.
I will say that tangentially, there are a lot of benefits to having one of our arrays. I mean, the incentive zoning for one, for sure. Our pilot agreement is a great incentive to the town. And like we said, this is a local company that we're hoping to work with, so hopefully it does reverberate back out into the community in that way as well.
It's your residents for the CCA program.
Mm.
Like that sort of, I know that's set, I don't know the exact detail, but I know that's set up, it's for people to sign up for community solar as part of that program as well.
Very good. Okay. Well, I'll be happy to start using the band shell once it's on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Well, it is a good benefit to the town and the residents would benefit from that for years to come. Is there a percentage of chance that this may not be all for a corporation and for residents too? If you were giving me a percentage, what would it be?
I mean, there's certainly a chance. I would say we're pretty far down the path with this entity, which is an employer in the town of Henrietta, so that's sort of, you know, I think
Right.
most projects, we can't even say that. A lot of times you're
Gotcha.
dealing with one entity and the project's all the way over here, so I think that was certainly one of the things we liked about these projects. That being said, if those agreements are not finalized. If that doesn't work, it would most likely turn into just a community solar project. At which
Gotcha.
point, it would be made available to, you know, the residents and.
Okay, all right, thank you. Have no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
No questions.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Borkowski. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I'd like to, I guess, clarify, I guess, as far as the benefit, you know, the solar code in the town is really to benefit the farmers in town. That's where solar panels are allowed so that we can benefit small farmers to help keep farming. This particular lot, isn't actively farmed, which is why the incentive zoning comes into play a little bit better than the Tobin Road, which is actively farmed. That's why that one, in a sense, switched, because it being actively farmed, they weren't able to preserve farmland neighboring the property. So the supervising town board is looking to still benefit a farmer, albeit in town, not just adjacent. So that one thankfully came off incentive zoning because we're able to benefit a farmer. This one, in a sense, benefits Bruce from the property that he has as, you know, as a farmer. So those are really the benefits, I think, as far as the community goes. The secondary one would be if the town could hook up. So I just wanted to clarify on that a little bit as far as the benefit goes, if that's okay, Mr. Barley. I think you were pretty much a part of that, you know, legislation prior, right, sir?
Yes, I was, Mr. Eckert.
So then my only other two questions on this one, basically goes back to the tree inventory on the same concept. Is there plans for crossing Red Creek?
Mhm.
I didn't see anything on the plan that it showed it crossing, but that's not gonna be a small task.
It is not. That's something we have to, it's something we have to work through. Most likely, it's gonna be, I would imagine we're gonna have sort of, you know, essentially effectively refer to over it.
Right.
So we're working with Fisher on what that. We've done that before on projects, but we're still working with that.
It's basically a steel plank or
Yeah.
concrete plank, kind of precast something over the, right over the top. Okay. And then I know that there was, and maybe this is even, if this is outside my purview, then Mr. Mistrella can correct me. Is there, I know there was communication with the county parks on crossing Lehigh Valley. Is that continued?
Yes, so we just gonna have a call with some legal counsel on our side and the county to discuss this. So I think, you know, I think some of the feedback is because this is sort of pre-existing the trail, that most likely that this isn't gonna, we're not gonna require the parkland. Yeah. But if that's the case, we may have to work through that process. Our hope is that when we talk to the county, they'll be sort of be able to come to an agreement where they're not gonna meet that. Requirement. But-
Yeah, and just for the record, I absolutely agree. The Lehigh Valley Trail, which became a linear park, bisected this property and therefore landlocked it. So it was, you know, a little odd for me to hear that, you know, you can't cross it. Well, wait a minute. Then how do you get to the property?
There's no way to preserve any additional land, because the whole sort of part of the property on the west, is not, other than the road, not developing. So it'd be easy to do that. I think it's more of a timeline, you know, going on. The state legislature,
Sure.
we may not want to wait that long, but we'll see.
Okay, so there is progress, at least with communication with the county at this moment. Okay, and that's good news. Well, that's good to hear. Okay. Those are the other comments I had that I reiterated from the Tobin Road, so I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Mr. Mistrella, any comments or concerns, sir?
Oh, nothing beyond what's been said.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin?
Seeker's been completed, the special use permit has been obtained, so I have no further questions,
Okay, very good.
comments.
Now the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to move ahead with application number 23-017.
Thank you, Mr. List.
Second,
Mr. Barley, thank you. You're really working on your last night here, my God.
Trying to get it in.
Yeah.
Get your radio tech.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Okay, and last item this evening, application number 23-018, Green Spark Solar, East Henrietta Solar 2 LLC for final site plan approval of a 2.414 megawatt DC, 1.875 megawatt AC photovoltaic solar array on approximately 7.4 acres located on East Henrietta Road, to be known as Middle Road, in a rural residential district.
So this is essentially just on the same lot as what we had previously talked about. So any questions, I am open for discussion.
Okay, we're probably good, but I will start, Mr. Ecker, I'll start at this end this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
One other comment to this one specifically, the southeast corner, with the grade change and the only potential disturbance to a residence is, and the, not Martensia, Silverberry, I forget the street. North of-
I think it's Hortensia or
is it Martensia? They get Silverberry and Martensia mixed up off of Garden Parkway. But anyway, there's one residence, and I know there's a grade change. So if there's trees in the planting from the swamp, and I'm just wondering if we define that there's a benefit in that corner for that resident, that we could plant a couple more there. If that helps.
Definitely.
So that's the only other, extension of this. I know it slopes down pretty quickly. Looks like a pretty good grade change through there. So I can't imagine they're staring at solar panels, especially at that height, but we could help block, they're pretty close to the property line too.
Okay.
So that was my only other comment based off of my review on that. Thank you.
Good idea. Thank you, Mr. Ecker. Yep. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. List.
Oh, just one question. Yeah, for the general benefit of the environment and maybe families with small children, are you going to be bringing some farm animals in to maintain the property, like little sheep or some pigs?
I was gonna say,
The growth.
it's fairly difficult to find a farmer who does do that, who
Really?
does bring around their sheep. Yes.
In this area.
Um,
So there's a number in Ithaca because there's a lot more projects.
Right.
Up here, it's, because they bring them in, they leave them for a period of, a week or so. I think it's is that how long it's
Yeah.
about a week. And so then they have to go somewhere else with.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of, so we're working we have a project in Plattsburgh where we do this. I think as more of these go in, that's gonna become more likely. So it's something that we're certainly gonna explore.
So it's just going to be a general mowing.
General mowing.
All right.
Yeah, and the pollinators that we use are generally sort of low growth, so you don't need to mow them that frequently, so it's, depending on the rain, but it's, 2 to 3 times a summer.
As on a personal note, I'm looking for somebody that would come in with some land clearing. So I did find a farm in the, there's a sheep, something in Victor area.
Oh, okay.
He brings his animals in.
Oh, all
You
right.
send him a picture of your area.
Wow.
He gives you a little estimate on what it would take.
Okay, that's.
Any chance you have a name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kaizen, Kaizen Farms. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And then there's one in Buffalo area too.
Right, okay,
All right.
great.
That's all. That's all I have. Mr.
I
Chairman.
thought maybe your John Deere broke down.
It always is.
Yeah. Chair will recognize Mrs. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a couple general questions, if you can refresh my memory. What is the general lifespan of one of these
I believe
arrays?
For our lease, it's a 25-year agreement.
Yep, so the warranted life of the solar panels is 25 years.
25.
They continue producing even after that date. So our lease is 25 years with options to extend it, I think up to 15 potentially. But that sort of depends on if the landowner wants to do that, but that's sort of the lifetime. I would say 40 years, but solar panels will continue to produce electricity, which will be at the same level it was when they first went in.
And if it does have to be decommissioned, is that something your company does, or do you bring in somebody from outside to do that?
I would guess that we would probably be subcontracting most of that. I mean, we do a lot of our own construction in-house. We haven't done a decommission project just because
Mhm.
none of them have been around that long enough
Right.
to do it. So who knows in that time what we'll be capable of doing, but my guess is a lot of it would be sort of subcontracted out.
And would there be, again, this is like looking beyond my lifetime, but,
Still be here.
40 years from now?
I was thinking
Doubtful.
25.
25, what's another 16? Doubtful. If I'm still on this board, when I'm over 100, then, you know, we gotta have another conversation. When it gets to that point, is there somebody that would oversee that to make sure that it's recycled like as it's,
Yeah, I mean-
because I'm asking because it's in this letter, the decommissioning scope and timeline, just to make sure, because you say you recycle, but is there somebody that would supervise to make sure you actually do recycle the materials and don't put them in a landfill? Because I read about that
Yes, I
happening.
mean, so you are absolutely correct. This is an issue. I mean, with all electronics recycling, it's an issue. The solar industry, it's an issue that they're trying to work through. So we recycle, I mean, our company recycles our panels. You know, they break, it happens all the time, so we do recycle them. We are the long-term operators of the project, so I would say that we will be the ones in charge of making sure that happens. 25 years from now is a long time, so, you know, to sit here and say like that we'll be the absolute ones that are doing that, I don't know, but the hope is that, I mean, in 25 years, the technology to recycle this equipment is gonna be a lot more advanced than it is now, right? So there's gonna be a lot easier, it's gonna be much more commonplace, because all of these things, you know, when they go offline, you need to recycle them and not put them in landfills, because, you know, if there's a stipulation you wanna put in there about recycling, I'm not sure exactly how that would look, but we are, you know, our company is committed to recycling our projects, and we would, you know, do everything in our power to make sure that any of the projects that we build in the decommission, that they are gonna be recycled, so.
Yeah, I've read some horror stories, not your company specifically,
Right.
but some other companies that are just like,
Yeah,
we're not gonna follow the rules, we're just gonna.
it's an issue in the industry, and, you know, just like anything, there's good players and there's bad players, but, you know, we're a B corporation, the environment is very important to us, so, you know, we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that, you know, these things are completely recyclable once they pop like that. That's like a good question. We might have-
Yes.
I'm sorry though, to piggyback on Mrs. Reynolds' comments. Last time you guys were here, I thought you said that you were contractually obligated to do all the things that she's asking.
We are contractually obligated. Does the decommissioning say I can't remember if it says exactly in the decommissioning that we are recycling.
Gotcha.
all
But you are responsible,
You're
like when this contract's up, you have to
That-
take everything as though it was
the-
never there, right?
Right.
I think
Okay.
it's more of what happens to all of the equipment.
After you take it out, okay.
Steel is one, you know, fine,
Gotcha.
you can recycle steel, it's, you know, the solar panels, most of the glass and aluminum and, you know, copper and everything. Most of that is recyclable. It's more about, you know, how it's added to force and
Right.
the decommission.
And you guys said it was in the mid to high 90s recyclability, right?
Yes,
Yes.
I think it's 98, right?
Yeah, I think 98 was the number I
That's great.
remember. Okay.
I was asking, says all components will be recycled or disposed of in accordance with local, state, and
Okay.
federal
Yep.
waste disposal regulations, so.
Yep.
This came to my
Yeah,
attention.
currently speaking, I think waste disposal regulations have not caught up to
Mm-mm.
these things. I think that is improving. And, you know, I would imagine in the next, really probably within the next 5 or 10 years, this will be a pretty standard thing, that how you treat, you know, this type of equipment. It can't just be dumped in a landfill. No one wants that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll piggyback with one more question as well. What's the degradation rate on one of these? So if it's 100% today, in 25 years, it'll be,
Yep.
and it's pretty high still, right?
We factored about 0.5% per year, so the warranted production is that by year 25, the system will be producing at or better than 82% of what it was.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah, it's gotten better. I mean, like, some of the oldest solar panels, you know, and the solar panels from the 70s, Kyocera, that they're still up and running, you know, they're not producing the same, but there's no moving parts, so.
Right. Very good. Well, thank you, guys. Okay, Mr. Owen, anything, sir?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Martin?
Nothing on my end either.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Barley?
Your final.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve application 23-018.
Thank you, Mr. Barley.
Thank
Do I
you.
have
Mr.
sufficient
Chair.
second, please?
I'll second.
Mrs. Reynolds, thank you.
Glad we're together, Ms. Reynolds.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to take a second to give a true, genuine thank you. I mean, this is, you've met Brooke Mayer, my supervisor, and I couldn't have asked for a better town to work with on my first project for this. So thank you for making it.
How's the
easy.
baby doing?
Oh my God, adorable,
Is it okay?
adorable.
Very
Tell her we
good.
said congratulations.
Will do.
I'll bet. Well, thank you guys very much. Merry Christmas.
I got a website for you. Let's go to Buffalo. Goat, let's go to Buffalo. No pesticides, no heavy equipment, just goats. You can book